Hey y'all, Mike with Cardboard Kingdom. Welcome back to everybody's favorite video of the month, the December 2024 monthly market recap. First and foremost, I have to apologize. I ran the data for this video weeks ago, and in my mind, I kind of cataloged it as it was done, because typically I don't sit on the data very long. I just kind of make the video right after it. But I didn't for whatever reason, and then I kind of just thought it was done, and it wasn't. And I know I said this last time. I promise the January 2025 monthly recap will be much sooner on the back end of January. It will happen right after January, and it will be out very, very soon. We're going to make some additional changes to the format for that month as well. Look at some new cards and change up the cadence a little bit. But regardless, I apologize for the delay on the December data, as I know this information is still good, not as relevant when it's 30 days old. And not right off the back of a month. So that's on me. I will be better in the future, I promise you. And if it's not out and I'm posting videos, say, Mike, where's the monthly market recap? I want to see what January looks like. I will get it done. As a reminder, our agenda for today, we're going to talk about some trophy cards, we're going to talk about some sealed products, and then we're going to talk about some set cards that I feel like are a little bit more collectible than some of their counterparts, and cards that I just want to keep, I want us to keep our eyes on as we continue to progress through the hobby, and we can continue to compile more and more months in this Disney Lorcana journey. I mean, Lorcana is kind of a year and a half old now, right, in terms of how long it's been out on the market. It's flying by. Yeah, time's flying. I think that as, parcel and part that I have 3 kids. That'll make the time fly. Man, I look really white in this video. Nothing's changed. I'm fine. The sun's coming in. I think that's I'm gonna have to mess with the filters on that, but all is well. I'm not a ghost, despite what my camera would have you believe. Okay, so starting off with the Golden Mickey. So for anyone new to Lorcana, this card is awarded at Disney Lorcana Challenge events as well as Disney Lorcana Championship events. Essentially massive tournaments that have a player field of anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 players. The top 4 or top 8 are typically awarded this card, and it's serialized out of 500. Right now, I actually haven't looked at the pop lately in terms of how many, because I was tracking for a while how many were out. Right now, there's probably close to like 150 to maybe 200 out. I doubt it's quite that high yet, but it is serialized out of 500. Not too many sales on this, as it is one of the most valuable cards in all of Lorcana. It says this is supposed to say December number of sales. There's only one sale in December on eBay that I could find. I looked across all the auction houses, so there might have been some private sales, there might have been some in-person sales, but the one sale that I could find was for 14,000. So one common trend with this card is it has continued to come down. I do believe that is going to continue to happen. There were rumors of a private sale of 40,000 after the first event. I thought that was incredibly overpriced. I priced this card personally somewhere around $10,000. I think this and the first edition 2022 D23 Expo Elsa Snow Queen are very similar in value. I do think that right now this card is selling for a little bit more. I think that we're going to continue to see that even out as we continue to progress into 2025 and 2026. Most recent sale of 14,000. I have it listed as a sell. I think that is going to continue to come down, especially in a world where they continue to issue these cards going into 2025 and 2026, whether that's at Worlds or future DLC events. I think the value is going to continue to turn down. So I would absolutely be a seller of this card. I feel pretty confident in that. Moving on to the Elsa Snow Queen, the D23 2022 promo that I just mentioned. We had 0 raw sales of this card in the month of December, so no raw cards went to auction that I could find. In terms of graded, we did have some sales, so just some data on the amount of graded cards, 388. The PSA gem rate remains at 64%. We had a PSA 10 low sale of $8,500 in the month of December, and then we had a PSA high sale of $15,000 for the month of December. Current low list for buy it now is $8,500. I personally think that this 15,000 sale was possibly fake. You never know, but someone could have just been trying to inflate the floor and show a $15,000 sale. I don't think that sale was right. I think this card remains around a $8,000 to $9,000 card. We have seen, which we'll look at in January, some sales that have ended. A lot of cards went to auction in January. A lot of Elsas, and the average sale price was anywhere between like $7,500 to $8,500, give or take, if I'm not mistaken. So I think this card remains about an $8,000 card. I have it listed as a hold. I bought it for much less than that just a few months back. And so anytime we see a stark jump up. I'm not going to be the first to recommend people to buy it. With that being said, I do think this will continue to increase in price as Lorcana grows. I think that this card is probably the most sound fundamental card in all of Lorcana from like an investment and just fundamental standpoint. I think that it's the chase of the entire game, which is Elsa, in combination with the fact that it's a first edition, it's a limited print, it's hard to grade, hard-ish to grade. It's got a lot going for it. Now, for any of my Pokemon fans out there, don't think that this is like the first edition Charizard or something like that, where there's only 100 of them in existence. You can see the PSA 10 pop report whenever I looked at this number a few weeks ago. Whenever I ran the numbers, it was 388. So that's, almost 3 times, or that's almost 4 times the amount of first edition Charizards, for example, that are out there. So it's not incredibly rare. It's not that scarce, but it definitely, in my opinion, does have the most upward mobility in terms of overall just grail chase collectability. Now, obviously, once again, I own this card, so take my bias out of it. I just think that this card, if you're a believer in Lorcana and you think that Lorcana is going to be around for a long time, I think that this card, a year from now, if you told me this card is going for double the price, so let's say 16,000, I would not be surprised at all. Now, you could also tell me that's going by for 4,000. I wouldn't be surprised at all, right? So take that with a grain of salt. But I feel very confident in the fundamentals of this card, which is why I own it. Moving on, Stitch Rockstar Store Championships, one of my favorite kind of, we'll call it medium barrier to entry cards in all of Lorcana. This is the first ever trophy card that was awarded in Lorcana. It was the first ever enchanted card that was awarded in Lorcana. It was the first kind of organized play tournament within Lorcana. Obviously, there were some smaller tournaments and things like that, but in terms of like Ravensburger sanctioned events, trophy cards being awarded, this was the first copy being awarded. There was only 4 of these awarded per store, and overall I think this card has a lot of collectability long term in terms of all the things I just mentioned, and it is amazing artwork, amazing character. Nicholas Cole was the artist on it, who is my personal favorite artist within Lorcana. His artwork is amazing, and I think he did a fantastic job on this card, and I really, really like it. So low sale for December was $378 for a raw copy. High sale, $384, basically, $375, we'll call it. Floor was up quite a bit since July. Ceiling was down a little bit. Once again, to keep in mind, for those of you who are not around, this card was selling for over $1,000 raw consistently for weeks after the initial tournament. It was selling for over $1,000. Then it was selling at $700 for an additional few weeks. I bought my copies around like $500 or $400, and then continued to come down. It bottomed out. There might have been a few sales around like $300 flat, maybe high $200s. It's kind of creeped back up since then. But I think that this card is an amazing card and one that I would love to have in my collection. Obviously, I do. And on top of it being all the kind of the provenance that I mentioned, it's also a very hard grade. You can see here a 40% gem mint rate, which was down 5% month over month since July. So that tells you it's getting harder to grade, which is not uncommon with these valuable cards. PSA 10 pop report was at 500, which is still incredibly low in the grand scheme of things. PSA 10 low sale was 725. PSA 10 high sale was 850. Once again, floor up, ceiling down, because this card had such a high ceiling. Looking back to July, whenever this card was graded and first coming out, it was selling for $4,000, and then so it stopped at $2,000 for a long time, and then it came down again. I think that the people who were buying it at $4,000 and $3,000 and $2,000, that was a mistake. But at the end of the day, in terms of underlying fundamentals, I agree wholeheartedly that this card is an amazing purchase and probably will get back to those values at some point. Now, does that take 5 years, 10 years? I don't know. I just know that this card is awesome, and I want to have it in my collection, and we're going to continue to track it. So that is the Stitch Rockstar Store Championship Trophy card. Moving on to its counterpart, the Ursula Sea Witch Queen Store Championship. So all the things I mentioned for the Rockstar Stitch are true here. This was the second version of that trophy card. There was only 4 awarded to each store. Once again, for the champions, or the top 4 rather. The low sale and this card is incredibly affordable. It has not moved much in price. It's came down and it's kind of been flat for a long time. So right now, the low sale for a raw version was $88 in December. High sale was $99. You can see the percent change since July here. This card came out in July, so it was extremely elevated. So this card was selling regularly for over 400 in the beginning. Once again, a massive mistake. You always want to wait on these things. Let the market flush out where the value is. Right now, I would say it's an amazing time to buy this card. It's had its retraces. It's been flushed out. It's under $100. I think that's a very fair price point for this card. Right now, the PSA 10 pop is around 196. The percent change since July is irrelevant. It is an incredibly hard to grade. So this is one of the top like 2 to 3 cards to grade in terms of in terms of how hard it is to grade in all of Lorcana. The Maui from the D100 box set is about the only other card that is as hard to grade as this Ursula, and it is even getting harder. You can see that's gotten 4% harder month over month since July, so that's continuing to turn down. This is a very, very hard grade, which then leads us into the PSA 10 low sale was $200 for this card for the month of December, which is a fantastic purchase. The card already costs $100. It's impossible to grade, and someone picked up a Gem Mint copy for $200. So that's a fantastic purchase on their end. $427 I think is more in line with a fair market offer and value, and we did see a $427 sale on eBay as well for the month of December. Overall, I think a card that's going to have even more provenance as the collector base begins to grow in Lorcana. Right now, Lorcana is still like, I mean, honestly, it feels like it's like 95% player based in terms of the overall ecosystem. Like the majority of people who are interacting with Lorcana are interacting with it from a player's perspective. Obviously, a lot of people collect Pokemon. Some people might play Lorcana, play Magic, things like that. But the collector base just has not hit Lorcana yet. If you're watching this video, we are very much in the minority in terms of sheer collectors within Lorcana. Obviously, I play the game. I know a lot of you guys play the game, but I would definitely consider myself a collector first. That is very rare. I do think this is a card, for example, sub $100. Should the collector base begin to grow and we have some sort of massive, Black Swan event where people do begin collecting Lorcana, whether that's a new release, where they add some alt arts and that kind of flocks people from the Pokemon crates or whatever. Not saying that would be good. I personally don't want that. I am still very much in acquisition mode, and so I'm just buying cards and not like letting the people fight over the 151 bundles or Blooming Waters or Prismatic or whatever. Like they can have that. Pokemon's also like, there's this whole thing about like all these trophy cards got released last year, and these uncut sheets and these prototype and these alphas and beta cards and all this stuff, and it was like all fake. And there's just so much like greasy stuff going on over there. Lorcana feels a little bit more pure in that sense, as those of us who are collecting this, while the cards are very expensive and it's not as easy to collect as maybe Pokemon, we just haven't seen the chaos yet of everything that comes with that. Now we have our own fake cards, everything like that, right? Not to say that Lorcana is flawless, but at the end of the day, it's very discouraging for the hobby overall. I think what's happening in Pokemon. So with that being said, I do think should the collector base grow, to bring it back to Ursula Sea Witch Queen, I think that this card is a card that definitely makes sense if you're looking to grow your collection, if you're looking to add, unique alt arts or trophy cards to your collection, to your binder, to your graded collection. I think that this card is one that makes sense at the $100 price point. Or if you want to go out and get a copy that is already graded in a PSA 10, definitely makes sense, as this is a card that is very, very hard to grade. So it seems like if you can catch one on auction, you might be able to get a pretty good deal. We'll see what happens to this card. It's one that I'm going to continue to track as we get into January. Excited to see what happens with it, but the $200 sale for the PSA 10 copy is a steal. So kudos to whoever got that. Moving over to the D23 Mickey Mouse Playful Sorcerer 2024, D23 2024 copy. This is one that will be removed. So this is one that I had my eyes on and I wanted to track. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think this card has so the uniqueness of this card is it was the standalone handout at the D23 2024 convention, in combination with, I believe it's the first time we've seen the gold nameplate. And so it's a Mickey, it's an alt art, it's unique art. It was a limited print, exclusive giveaway, gold nameplate, some like new features, right? So there are a lot of things that are going for it, but I just don't think it's something that we need to track. I think that it's collectible, but it's gonna move very slow. And I feel like there's other exciting things, like whether it's a Cold Full or Rapunzel or Cindy, or just getting into some of these more trophy cards that are gonna be coming out, like the Baymax and things like that. I don't think this card fits necessarily necessarily with what we're looking to do. So do not expect to see this card in January. However, in December, we did see a low sale of $135, high sale of $166 for a raw copy. The PSA 10 pop report is already at 817, so that speaks to the amount of leads that are out there. It does get a gem mint grade 46% of the time, so it is a pretty hard grade. PSA 10 low sale 329, PSA 10 high sale 375. Not a lot of variance between the PSA 10 marks, but I do think this is once again a card that if I was going to get it, I'd probably just go out and get the PSA 10 copy because it grades at such a hard rate, and the fact that it is not going to, it's the premium just isn't really there. Like if you're paying double the price for a card to get a gem mint copy, and that card's hard to grade, it gets a gem mint grade sub 50% of the time. Like at that point, and I'm someone who grades a lot of cards, right? I'm just going to go out and get the PSA 10 copy if I do want to have a copy graded. Now, I personally, for those of you who have been around for a while, you know this, but I am much more a like binder collector. I'm not. It always looks right. I was going to show you guys my binder, but it like I enjoy because I got into this with my daughter, and we love to just flip through the pages and kind of talk about the characters she likes or the cards that she likes and so on. And so I much prefer. I'm a binder collector at heart. Like if I had a first edition base set like Pokemon, like I would want that in a binder. Like obviously from a value, you want the PSA 10 copy, but just like in sheer like enjoyment, take all the money out of it. Like I would much rather have a binder copy. But when it comes to cards like this that are very hard to grade, and that additional challenge, I think makes sense to then have it graded. So those are cards like, you know, the Cinderella that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, the Rockstar Stitch, and some of these cards that are harder to grade, the Elsa Snow Queen, D23 2022. These are cards that I want to have graded just for that additional challenge. And we'll get into the cards that maybe I don't really care about, like the Elsa, for example, from the first chapter. This is a card that gets a gem mint grade, I think 70 to 80% of the time. If you get a copy, it's probably going to get a gem mint grade, and so that kind of brings down the allure of having it in a gem mint condition, in my opinion. And so that's why you probably won't see me, at least in the near future, having like a PSA 10 completed set of the first chapter. I initially did start doing that, and I had that. That was a completed goal of mine. But then as I started to realize that a lot of these cards get a gem mint grade the majority of the time, it kind of is like, okay, well, you know, what's really the point of this? And so I begin to sell off some of those to then get raw copies because I just enjoy that more, right? So where that challenge is there, it motivates me to have the graded copy. If it's going to get a gem mint grade the majority of the time, that's where I kind of, you know, fall off, I guess. Moving over to the sealed side of things, starting with the first chapter sealed booster box case. December was big for the first chapter. This is when we really started to see it kind of maintain a constant threshold of all-time highs and begin to climb higher and higher. So our low sale for a case in December was just over $1,000. High sale for a case in December was just over $1,300. This was a significant movement in here. There was a lot of sales at $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, and then at $1,300. And so there was a lot of different ladders that the market kind of leveled up there. And you can see percent change since July, 26% on the floor, 35% on the high end, and these are continuing to run in January. So right now, the first chapter booster box case, I think lowest on the market is $1,500. I've talked about a lot of my market updates. I'm of the belief that these will not be reprinted, and I think that this is a sealed product that is going to continue to go up. So once again, my conservative mindset, I have this listed as a hold because it's gone up, 30 at this point. When we look at it January, it's probably going to be up close to 40 to 50% on the high side since July. And so whenever something's gone up that much, it's hard for me to tell you guys to go out and get it because I just feel like it's ran so much, like it's due to come back a little bit. And it truly is. It is at all-time highs and continues to hit all-time highs kind of month after month. So that tells me like, hey, it's probably going to come back down, so hold it. But then there's the counter argument of if they truly don't ever print this again, which we don't know for a certain whatsoever, if they don't reprint it, then I don't think it is ever going to come back down. Maybe $100 here or there, but by and large, I think that it's a deflationary asset and it's going to continue to go up. So, use your own judgment there. If you don't have any first chapter, it's obviously in a attainable-ish position right now, price point. But to do that information what you will, Ravensburger could come out by the time I upload this video and say they're going to reprint it. I personally don't think they will, because they've released it now in the States multiple times. They've released it in Europe multiple times. They released a French version. They've released it in Australia. They just released China. They are then releasing Japan, or they just released Japan. There's all sorts of first chapter out there. And so I am of the mindset that this is not something that is going to be reprinted. So individual booster boxes for the first chapter, $290 on the low side for December. High side was $349. Once again, hitting that all-time high. 28% on the floor, 22% on the high end. Right now, an individual booster box I think is around like $340, $350. So the individual boxes haven't moved that much. We are starting to see the premium on the case side of things, which I think will continue to extrapolate as we continue to get further and further away from this being a product that's regularly opened. I think people are going to pay significantly more for a case to do things like box breaks rather than an individual box, due to the sheer fact that that case really gives you a really good chance at pulling an enchanted. But we need to see the enchanted values continue to rise, which we are starting to see, but we need to continue to see that to level up, because that's also going to drive the price of the box higher. So that is where we're at for the first chapter booster box. Moving quickly through Rise of the Floodborne. Honestly, it hasn't changed that much. $540 low sale, $555 for a case high sale. Individual box $134, $140. This product has remained incredibly flat. I absolutely have it listed as a buy. I think this is in my opinion, this is the least printed set in all of Lorcana. I think that it's a great purchase and a great hold long term. I think it's got some amazing cards. It's got my personal favorite set card and all of Lorcana inside of it, and I think it's going to have a lot of collectability long term. So this would be a product that it just has not moved that much, and I don't think it's going to be reprinted again. And so I think that those two things combined together will lead to this product escalating in price sooner rather than later. In the same thought process, this is the last set that did not have enchanted locations available. So when you think about from a collector standpoint and people doing like box breaks and this product getting opened, this might be if someone's looking between like Ursula's Return or Inklands or first chapter and second chapter. Okay, well, first chapter's out of reach. It's got an insane price point. Chapter 3, Chapter 4, well, I might open this and I could get a, Belle's House enchanted, for example, or Belle's Workshop enchanted or something like that, or LS Legacy, whatever. But Rise of the Floodborne, there's no enchanted location. So you might get like a Namari, which I love the art on that card. Like, I know it's not everyone's favorite. I'm a huge fan of it, but this does not have enchanted locations. So on the high end, you're going to pull a Cindy if you get an enchanted. Low end, you might pull an Amari, a Pete, a Beast, etc. But there's no enchanted location. So it's the second set. It's got prominence in that sense. It is the least printed set, in my opinion, in combination with the enchanted roster. And a lot of those cards, they're not really collectible yet, so I don't talk about it a lot. But a lot of these set 2 cards, which this is different from the first chapter, are very, very hard to grade. And so we're talking like 40 to 50% kind of across the board for a lot of them. And so that also leads to the chase factor of like a PSA 10 copy of Rise of the Floodborne. So like that's a set, honestly, and I haven't thought about this yet because I need to redefine my collection goals. I'm spread too thin right now. I've got too much going on in terms of where I want to go. I need to redefine my direction. But that's like a PSA 10 set that I wouldn't mind having and collecting, because there's a challenge to that. Whether it's the Cindy has a very hard grade, and really across the board, like I said, I think like the Maleficent, I haven't looked at it for a while, but I think the Purple Dragon, Madame Mim, I said Maleficent, I meant Purple Dragon. I think the gem rate on that was like 40 to 50%, and that's, like I said, it's kind of the standard for the Rise of the Floodborne. So a set that I like quite a bit. Moving quickly through, we've already been going for 23 minutes, so we'll try and get this thing wrapped up here. I know you guys don't want to sit here and listen to me talk all day. So, D23 2024 Collector's Box, low sale for December, $278. High sale for December, $300. Up 32% on the floor, 26% on the ceiling. I have this listed as a hold. Once again, this is a very similar to like, well, honestly, I should probably have this listed as a buy if you want it. This is a product that it's got a lot of valuable cards inside. It's got amazing artworks inside. I'm a huge fan of this product overall, but it has seen a lot of growth here lately. If you can get this box maybe off, maybe you can do like a Facebook deal or something like that. If you can get it for like close to like 250, maybe even like 225 for a really good, if you find someone really really looking to part with it, I think that it's a really solid buy there. If you're paying 300, I don't know. There's just other things I'd probably rather buy for 300, but at the end of the day, it's got a lot of really really cool arts in it, and I do love the product. So that's why I have it listed as a hold. All right, getting into our set cards, wrapping this thing up. Elsa, Spirit of Winter, 775 for a raw card, a low sale in December, 875 for a high sale in December. Up 8% on the floor, down 8% on the high since July. PSA 10 Pop Report, 2,068 of these bad boys. So this is the first ever Lorcana card to pass the 2,000 number in PSA 10 Gem Mint grades. That's exciting news. Congrats to Elsa. She is over 2K. Shout out to her, the chase of Lorcana. I do think that number is obviously going to continue to go up. Now, does it peak at 3,000? Does it peak at 4,000? That I don't know. I think it's probably going to be closer to 3,000 than 4,000. But just to put this into perspective for you guys, I think last time I looked, there was 12,000 PSA 10 English Moonbryons, and I think there's another like 10,000 Japanese PSA 10 Moonbryons. So to put this into perspective, like Lorcana compared to Pokemon, there's maybe 10% of the overall population of the Elsas as there is to Moonbryons. So when you think about this price point of PSA 10 copy, $1,300 on the low side, almost $1,500 on the high side. The Moonbryon right now I think is going for 3,000, and there's infinitely more of those out there. So the Enchanteds in Lorcana do have, in terms of just pure fundamentals, have a lot of collectable aspects to them. Now the question is, will there ever be the demand for Lorcana that there is for Pokemon? The populations of these cards do support them to be to inflate in price very very quickly. The thing is, can Ravensburger capture those collectors and bring them over here and get them to chase cards like the Elsa or the Cinderella or whatever? And so that remains to be seen. But in terms of just pure fundamentals and total amount of quantity out there, Lorcana cards, even the set cards like the Elsa, do have very, very sound principles from a collection standpoint and like scarcity and rarity. Obviously, the set card's never going to be as scarce as like the D23 2022 Snow Queen Elsa is always going to significantly outpace the Spirit of Winter. The Spirit of Winter is a tenth of the price, right? And so I do think this card has very sound fundamentals. I think that it will continue to be a chase. And I mean, the card's gorgeous, just outright gorgeous. This card in person just pops. The Elsa art looks tremendous. Just overall 10 out of 10. Love the card, love the art. And I think it's very, very sound. So I have it listed as a buy right now. If you're new to Lorcana and you've been eyeing this card, I think it is a great time to get in. I think the floor is closer to like 850 to 900 now. It's trended up a little bit in January. I would still buy it with the 0 reservations at that price. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think this card is very, very sound. Moving over to my favorite set card in all of Lorcana, the Cinderella Ballroom Sensation Art Personified. $274 floor for December, $320 high sale for December. Small, insignificant changes since July. PSA 10 Pop Report on this card, 739, up 21% since July. PSA 10 Gem Mint rate of 44%. Very, very hard to grade. PSA 10 low sale 410. PSA 10 high sale 510. Once again, a card that I buy across the board. Love this card as a set card. It's got a lot of the set 2 benefits that I mentioned earlier of the card being very hard to grade, as well as probably being the lowest populated cards out there. You can see 739 PSA 10s in existence. This is a set that has been out for a year. There's still only 739 that have been graded as a PSA 10, and it is a very hard grade. So we're talking about cards that have less than 1,000 copies out there. That's going to add a lot of collectability to them as we get into this, 5-year time horizon, 10-year time horizon, assuming Lorcana continues to deliver and is here with new sets, new tournaments, etc. At that point, I think that this card is going to be set up for success tremendously, and is absolutely, if I was starting to collect Lorcana today, would be, in terms of cards that I like and IP that I like and, just beautiful artwork, this would definitely be priority 1A for me. If I had a couple $100 to spend, I think this card makes complete sense. I think as we move into January and February here, I think the lowest on the market is like 300. And this was a card that was going for 500 very, very consistently back in early 2024. So great time to buy this card. We've seen it go up to highs. We've seen it get cut in half. We've now seen it to come back. And I just think at the end of the day, this is one of those cards that you're gonna be glad that you have. Should you like it, or if you plan to be around Lorcana for a while, I think that this is a card that you're gonna want to get your hands on. Last but not least, we'll finish up with Stitch, and I'll give some kind of final thoughts about Lorcana as a whole right now. High sale $378 for a raw copy. Our low sale $378, high sale $384. Once again, marginal changes on the percentage since July. Floor's up a little bit, ceiling's down a little bit. PSA 10 pop report of this card, 500, because it's a very hard card to grade. 40% gem mint rate. PSA 10 high sale, 725. Our low sale, 725. PSA 10 high sale, 850. So once again, to put that into to compare it here against to put it into perspective is what I was going to say. $739 for the PSA 10 pop report for Cindy, $500 for Stitch, and you see what those extra 200 copies do. This card is it's a little bit more costly on the just raw side of things, which I do think will change. But at the end of the day, it's selling for 2 to 3x the price, I guess 2x the price, and a PSA 10 copy, even though the near mint raw version is not that much more expensive. Those 239 extra copies matter a lot as it comes to the scarcity. And once again, that's why when you compare like the Elsa to the Moonbryon, you look at overall pop reports, Lorcana has a fraction of the demand, so the card's a fraction of the price. But should any sort of marginal increase in demand come in, we could see Elsa start to get back to $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for a raw copy sooner rather than later, and that could happen quick. Now, I always am of the mindset that you don't get leveraged, you take your time, you set clear defined goals by cards that you like, and so that way, if the card goes down $100, you're price agnostic, you don't really care, you have something that you like, that you want to collect. I think that's the base layer of getting involved in this hobby. But if you're at the end of the day, the card could go up in price in the short term very tremendously. Now, I don't know when that event happens. I think that this is going to be a great year for Lorcana on the back of Worlds whenever that gets announced. And I guess this will be a good time to just kind of wrap up my thoughts overall. So I think right now for Lorcana, I think December was a good month to end the year on. A lot of cards saw marginal increases. Some of the sealed stuff did very, very well. We start to see all-time highs. We started to see the trophy cards kind of hit auction more. And just got to get some more visibility and go through. It was clear that people were happy with the returns they had gotten on some of these trophy cards, specifically the Elsa. We started to see them come into auction a little bit more in November and December, and that really, which we'll look at in January, really came into January where these Elsas were hitting the market very, very frequently, and they were constantly getting bought at very strong prices. And so that tells me that people who maybe got in early and paid $100 for that box set are now taking their profits at this $8,000 price point, let's say, for the Elsa. But then these people who are coming in at $8,000, they're not going to be looking to flip it. Like, you're not buying it. Let me rephrase that. They're not looking to sell it in the short term most of the time. And so that tells me that there's a new level of collectors and investors coming in who are willing to pay that 8K price tag and then ultimately have a longer time horizon on it. And so I think there's kind of a new bar that's being set. I think that December was a great month overall, but I do think that there's a lot of questions for Lorcana right now and for Ravensburger specifically. Communication has been very lackluster as of late, and I struggle with this a little bit because, like, I don't know, like, you don't really hear a lot of like statements from Pokemon, like they hey, prismatic evolutions is a problem, we're gonna try and address that, but they don't really give us a lot of communication. Versus the Ravensburger team, they're rolling out these new sets, they're putting together lore and stories and really kind of providing the like Disney side of things to the TCG, which I think is amazing, and they don't get enough credit for that, right? Like putting together lore on the website and things like that. Like they do a lot of really cool stuff. But as it relates to the competitive scene, the communication is very lackluster. Worlds has still yet to be announced in terms of an official date at Disney World, in combination with the fact that we have no updates on the DLC events that are hopefully going to be coming in 2025. They will come in 2025, but we have no DLC information. We have no Worlds information. I mean, Worlds might be in 2 months. It might be in 3 months. That's a big trip, especially we have friends coming from overseas. Like that stuff needs to be ironed out. And so I really, really, really need them to pick up the communication side of things as it relates to the competitive side of Lorcana. We have also heard well, they've rolled out some new some good things and some bad things in terms of the set championships. Seems like they're going to continue with this format of the 8 trophy cards awarded. That obviously makes them incredibly less valuable than some of the other set champs or trophy cards that have been awarded, specifically Stitch and Ursula that we're each a 4 of. Now we have Mirabelle and Scar that we're each an 8 of. So that obviously devalues them significantly, and it seems like the 8 of format is going to continue to stay in combination with the fact that they got rid of the second place play mat, which I'm going to be honest, guys, I've never won one, so my opinion here is probably irrelevant. I didn't see that as a big deal, but a lot of you have voiced your frustrations about the second place playmat being gone. And it seems like that was a major deterrent for a lot of you guys. So we'll continue. I think they'll adjust, they'll pivot. Should organized play participation go down across the board, I think they will address it and pivot. But there's been a lot of things lately that just I wish they were doing a little bit better of. I'm excited for here in a couple of weeks we're going to get the set 7 reveals are going to start, which will be nice, and then we'll kind of be off into the races again. Hopefully we get some worlds announcements and we just get some good vibes going. We could really do a lore cast right now like that. Love to see Steve Warner, Ryan Miller get on and do one of their presentations about updates and things to come. It's not for a lack of effort, right? They just rolled out China. I know Steve was just over in Japan at that release. They just released Japan last week, and did that full rollout. So they've got plenty of going on. The game is growing at a tremendous level. Some insider information about the Japan release. If you're still here 35 minutes into this video, I talked to a massive Pokemon collector who was over there, who was at the event that Ravensburger put on to roll out Lorcana. He said that thousands of people were there and it was well received. But in his opinion, it is going to be very hard to break into that market. Obviously, Japan, original, the founding father, or that's where Pokemon was originated. Pokemon has a stranglehold on that culture, just like it does ours. Even more so there, as it's ingrained and it's their own personal IP that was created there and is ran there. So Lorcana is going to have some upward challenges, and it's going to be hard to break in. But there were thousands of people at the initial release. Obviously, the Disney IP is up there amongst the strongest of any other IP in the world, stronger than any other IP in the world. Now, in Japan, I would say Pokemon probably has a leg up over the mouse, for sure. Maybe not worldwide, but in Japan specifically. So we'll see what shakes out there. But it thousands of people for a new trading card game to pull a Mickey Mouse or whatever. Very cool to see them there. And then last but not least, or maybe I think that's about it, but yeah, so I think overall, to just kind of summarize everything I've said here, December was a strong month. I think from a market and price side of things look very, very strong. If my strategy right now is to continue to buy where I can. I am getting a little bit more cash heavy right now as we get into February and March. I have a sense that some people are going to begin to kind of sell off and are going to get weary about there's just going to be this lull in between now. Like EU and NA championships have happened. This period now, there's no competitive events. Stuff's crazy with Pokemon. People might be checking out other TCGs. League of Legends releasing their TCG. There's going to be a lot of distractions here for the next couple months. And I think that's going to lead people to part ways with their collection. I personally have no desire to part ways with mine. I'm 100% a buyer right now. And so I want to be well positioned to be there should someone want to sell their collection. I want to be able to purchase it. And so I'm trying to get a little bit more cash heavy right now than I have been in the past, just to be positioned for that. But there's so many cards out there that I love that are priced very, very fairly right now. So I'm still buying with confidence, right? Like I said, I'm not buying as much as I historically probably would, just because I have the sense that I might have some really big opportunities here coming up, and I want to be prepared for it. But I love where the market's at. I think pricing is very, very fair, and I remain very, very confident in my love for Lorcana and my desire to collect. So that is where I am at for December. Sorry for the 40-minute video. Did not anticipate ranting, looking like a ghost for 40 minutes, but here we are. Hopefully you all liked it. Please give me your feedback in the comments, like always. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.